A religião é um elemento importante na sociedade indiana, logo na sociedade goesa. Apesar dos 450 anos da presença portuguesa em Goa, é curioso que hoje em dia, em Goa, a maior parte da população é hindu. Eles representam cerca de 64% da população. Seguido muito mais abaixo da comunidade católica, que representa cerca de 30%. E depois ainda há uma minoria muçulmana, que representa cerca de 10% da população. Ora, a importância da religião espelha-se na política. Os dois grandes maiores partidos da Índia e de Goa é o Congresso, que é um partido de centro-esquerda e que diz apoiar todas as comunidades da Índia, sejam elas cristãs, muçulmanas, hindus, mesmo pequeninas comunidades, como a comunidade Sikh. E depois temos o BJP, que é um partido de centro-direita, intimamente relacionada com uma organização de fundamentalistas hindus e, portanto, aparentemente anticristã, anti-comunidade cristã, mesmo anti-comunidade muçulmana. Neste momento, o partido no poder, tanto no governo central como aqui em Goa, é o Congresso. Portanto, achámos interessante neste episódio dar-vos a conhecer uma personalidade muito conhecida aqui em Goa, que se chama Manohar Parrikar. Ele não só é hindu, mas também é político. Foi ministro-chefe de Goa em 2002 e neste momento é o líder da oposição. Vamos entrar. Mr. Parrikar is at home? He's at home, Mr. Parrikar?
Yes, madam, go in.
Christian community here in Goa, it's very much attached still to the Portuguese, to the cultural heritage. But it's a very small community compared to the Hindu community. How do you see them?
See, I don't see much difference because basically Goan, I will call it as a Goan culture. It is a mixture of Hindu and Catholic functioning or various events or occasions which takes place. If you see the local population, you will hardly be able to separate them out. Particularly in North Goa, you will not be able to separate them out from the tone of the way they speak Konkani. It's almost same way. And here we have a very harmonic relation with each other. Catholics visiting Hindus in Ganesh festival and Hindus going to Catholics during Christmas, New Year. So probably the only differences between Hindus and Catholics you can identify is during the wedding time. They are more dressed in Western style with suit, tie, everything, and Hindus you won't find it. That difference apart, probably you won't find much of a difference in Hindus and Catholics. Western influence, yes, there is a bit of Western influence on Goa, obviously because Goa was exposed to Western culture through Portuguese maybe, much more, and Goans have been travelling worldwide during Portuguese time, even afterwards. You will find a Goan almost with such a small population. You can find him from Toronto in Canada to Australia. You can check up every place, you will find Goans. So there is lot of interaction with Western world, and obviously that has resulted into certain practices which are particularly convenient. They are more convenient for the new industrial climate, they are more convenient for travelling, the new type of conveyance. And so certain Western aspects have been picked up. Even the command of English language, if you see, in Goa as compared to other parts of India, is much better.
You talked about language, that English is a very important language here in Goa. And I know that you are an adept of Marathi. You believe that you should have the same status as Konkani Roman script. What about Portuguese? Shouldn't have the same status as Konkani and Marathi?
No, for me language is not a barrier. If people use Portuguese, let them use, but I don't think the percentage of people who are using Portuguese today is substantial, whereby you have to provide it as status, because ultimately what is the meaning of status? That means government documents should be available. Today government is facing problem even translating old Portuguese document into English. So for all practical purpose, the government language is English, and Konkani, whether it is in Devanagari script, which is the recognized official language, or Marathi, which is a recognized Indian language, is used as an used for more by people for reading and corresponding between themselves rather than with the government. I read mostly Marathi, and in English I've been reader of Jeffrey Archer, all those kind of plus scientific fiction novels. No, I read a lot, variety, and in almost any subject and every subject. Because I believe that a person is student all his life. He can never be all knowledgeable. Even at this age, at 52, I am still learning many things, learning the skill of handling people, learning many other things, even technology. So, though my favorite reading is based on science, I do read light novels, I do read philosophy, but of course not into, nowadays I do not get time to read too many serious books. Nowadays again newspaper, magazine and this kind of general economic reading has increased, because that is required for me as a politician. So, slight variety has taken place, but reading is a plenty.
And because of that habit of him, Parrikar, sitting in car and reading the books, public used to say that this fellow does not want to wave at the public. He is always busy in his car. He's got love for books.
Sendo Manohar Parrikar fundamentalista hindu e, portanto, anticristão, como é que o Sr. Anglais, sendo amigo pessoal dele, o defende nessa qualidade?
Ele não fez coisas só para hindus, ele fez coisas para todo Goa. E por causa disto, andava todo dia deste lado, outro lado, ele não havia bom contato com o público. Public relations was bad, because he always remained busy. You have to take appointment from Parrikar. Now people want a politician where you can push the door and walk in.
It is within the parameters of.
Mas Manohar Parrikar não é apenas um político. É também um empresário que se move entre o seu escritório na Assembleia e a sua fábrica.
Yeah, I am born Goan, but I did my engineering from IIT, Indian Institute of Technology at Mumbai. When I came back in 80s, I started manufacturing hydraulic. Initially for 5-6 years probably we had a lot of problems, because whenever I went to and told them that I am manufacturing this particular item, the first question I got was not about whether I am capable of making this, but how is the tourism in Goa, because Goa has been always considered across India as a good destination for tourism. And so it used to be half-hour discussion on tourism, the next half-hour on business, and to get a confidence level to where they could place the order to a remote place not known for its industrialization. Maybe it took me about 5-6 years to stabilize. They have this Vastu Shastra. Architect is a fond of Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian science, which says that orientation of your seating, your business has to be in a particular way. So he told me that you have all your plans, everything this side, and do your unloading, stocking on the other side. This is I got from, my wife is from Lonavala, near Pune. So we got that this plant from there, from in-laws place. We had planted it originally over there. And unluckily in 92, luckily or unluckily I don't know, I was pushed into politics. It was not a decision which I took on my own.
So as a businessman, you're telling me, you needed to gain trust from your clients. So was this the same trust you had to gain from your voters as a politician?
I feel that whether it's business or politics, unless you gain the trust of I won't like to call voters as or electorals as clients, but ultimately you appeal to them. They have to believe you. If they believe you, then only you will get results. Otherwise, it's not so easy. You can cheat them for some time, you can fool them for some time, but you can't fool them all the time. So whether it's business or whether it is politics, I always believe in one basic concept, that honesty is the best principle. A lot of time people call it honesty as the best policy. I don't believe it, because policies can change over a time on a different issues. You can change or modify your policies as the time passes. Honesty, as far as honesty is concerned, I believe it's the best principle. You follow it without any, for example, you don't lie to the people, then you don't have to cover up your lie. You can go on talking truth all the time. So you deal with people with honest intent, and I think people reciprocate back. I have seen the reciprocation very much.
The most important thing about an administration is the belief in its fair play and integrity. He believes in this. I told him actually in 1992, you are the most person fit to be a chief minister. But unfortunately, you will never be a chief minister because you are a Brahmin. Then he said, I will make you change your opinion. And he did change it. He did make it. Brahmins are minority, and minority Brahmins have got antipathy of Bahujan Samaj, majority. It was, why, reason was very simple. During Portuguese days, only Brahmins' sons, children, daughters used to get education. No non-Brahmin used to get education. Why? Because of wealth. All the wealth was accumulated with Brahmins, by good means or bad means, but it was so.
The Portuguese were here almost for 5 centuries. What good did they bring to Goa?
Lot of things to Goa, and basically, though it's not part of heritage, the two important points which I will like to make is, number one, the discipline and the cleanliness, because ultimately heritage also can be preserved if you have a discipline and you have that clean mind and clean attitude. So this was two civic discipline I saw, which was par excellence, and I saw the respect for cleanliness. So these two things have been imbibed in me, and what I see in Portuguese heritage, which has been today quite focal point of Goa. If you travel across Panji, for example, you will find many buildings which are constructed in a old, I don't know whether it's Gothic or it's Portuguese specialization, but Western influence buildings, which looks nice, and they have a painting style also which was quite attractive. It's the reason why during film festival, when it came to India for the first time, Goa for the first time, I got the city painted back to its own old glory, where old buildings were painted in the same color combinations, using the same technique, the old technique. Maybe even in Portugal today, they might not be painting using the same paints, but we use those old paints where mixing and those were important to get the same effect on those buildings.
So you do believe in preserving the heritage?
Definitely. Not only preserving, I have been instrumental in fact, your Mala film, this Mala Fontaines festival was a concept which was developed by this heritage group. When they came to me, I backed it up immediately.
Foi sob o governo de Paz Ricard que Fontainhas foi restaurada. Essa arquitetura portuguesa foi finalmente restaurada, que começou o Festival de Fontainhas. E eu próprio fiquei admirado, porque eu considerava ele mesmo extremista hindu, né? O BJP. O Paz Ricard tinha essa reputação de ser inimigo de Portugal.
Sim, não achas verdade? Aquele
Eu
incidente das Fontainhas, por exemplo.
O incidente das Fontainhas.
Que eles destruíram todas as placas com nomes em português.
Não, mas isso não foi feito por Paz Ricard, nem pelo BJP. Isso foi feito por um pequeno grupo de gente que se chamou Freedom Fighters. Né? Eu sempre estava a pensar que se há Freedom Fighters que estão ainda vivos no ano 2000, então eles devem ser todos tão velhos que não podem levantar um pau para quebrar uma placa, não é? Portanto, esses não foram os verdadeiros Freedom Fighters. Isso foi tudo uma...
See, there are some Portuguese names which are given to Goan roads. I have no objection to them as long as those people are not involved in atrocities against the freedom fighter then. There are some Portuguese which Portuguese also will not like to call them the great people. Like Azad Monteiro was there. He was called Azad Monteiro because he took pleasure in harassing and virtually terrorizing the freedom fighters or those who supported the independence of Goa. Goa in the last phase was under Portuguese rule when Portuguese was actually under Salazar in a dictatorial list. So Governor General was being sent here to Goa to look after. Many of them were good, many of them were bad. The last one, Vassal da Silva, many Goans recall, I don't remember because I was kid when Goa was liberated, but Vassal da Silva, many people respect him because he did not agree to the direction of the High Command to destroy or detonate many of the bridges and places in Goa which they had planted. They had assumed that Indian Army will take over Goa. So there were a lot of explosives which were planted across Goa. He refused to blow them up. He refused to give order where there would have been damage to the state. So a lot of Goans you will find still say some good thing about him. It's not necessary. Now when the Portuguese names were there, the freedom fighters' demand were replace the old Portuguese name with some Indian names, because the perception was they are Portuguese general or Portuguese people who supported atrocities or who were anti-Indians.
You know, all these signages, Portuguese signages in the Mala Fontaines area, he got freedom fighters to claim that these were signs of a colonial hangover and that these colonial symbols should be wiped out. Now, which was ridiculous because, you know, I mean, post-liberation Goa, accepted the contribution of Portugal. There were negative aspects like the Inquisition, but there were also positive aspects in terms of the Portuguese contribution to, let us say, at the most flippant level, to the culinary richness of Goan food, to its contribution to Goan architecture, and in a sense even its contribution to law and order.
Eu, por acaso, estive em Fontainhas no mesmo dia e a destruição foi muito, muito pequena, conforme o que eu vi. Não foi uma placa aqui, uma placa lá, e logo veio a polícia e parou isso tudo. A polícia veio lá sob as ordens do Paricar, né? Se o Paricar quisesse destruir Fontainhas, primeiramente, no primeiro lugar, ele não teria restaurado Fontainhas para destruir no dia seguinte. E se ele quisesse, deixava de mandar a polícia para parar essa gente que veio lá destruir, né? Deixava de destruir, né? Portanto, eu pessoalmente fui um dos maiores críticos do Paricar quando ele esteve no governo, mas isso foi no fim do seu reinado, porque eu achei que no fim ele começou a mostrar umas tendências comunalistas, especialmente com este filme que ele produziu.
एंटोनी अल्वारिस इस किले का प्रमुख हूँ। मुझे आप लोगों पर गोली चलाने का ऑर्डर है। आप लोग वापस जाइए वहाँ पर काज। हम लोग वापस जाने के लिए नहीं आए हैं। चलाना हो तो बेशक गोली चलाओ।
Bem, eu acho que tudo o que o filme mostrou é verdade. Comecemos com isso. É verdade que os portugueses trouxeram aqui a religião cristã, que fez a conversão dos hindus para o cristianismo de uma maneira muito violenta, muito bárbara. Isso tudo é verdade. Eu até ouvi falar disso quando era garoto, né? Foi os meus pais que me contaram.
ईसाई ने हिंदू पंक्ति में बैठकर भोजन किया। अब आप सब हमारे हो गए। आप सब ईसाई बन गए।
Mas o que eu não gostei do filme é que 500 anos depois não havia necessidade de fazer os jovens de hoje ver e realizar essas coisas, porque pode fazer nascer um ódio nos corações deles, um ódio contra o cristianismo, um ódio contra os seus irmãos goeses que são cristãos, né? Que 500 anos depois não havia necessidade de...
Sabes que falamos com algumas pessoas e muitos comparam o Manohar Parrikar com Salazar. Achas que tem alguma razão nisso?
Não, acho que não, acho que não. Eu não acho que o Parrikar foi um ditador, nem quis ser. O Parrikar, eu acho que é o melhor ministro-chefe que nós tivemos aqui em Goa.
You know, I think the comparison is extremely appropriate. You know, the reason why Parrikar is a Salazar, or probably even worse than Salazar, is because what did Salazar represent? Salazar represented an extreme right-wing, fascist, dictatorial regime, even to the people in Portugal. You see? That is why the Salazar government fell and the Republic came, and after the Republic came, a lot of Salazar's sins of omission and commission were exposed. Now, Parrikar represents the BJP. Parrikar represents not just the BJP, but he was a hardcore Sanchalak, which means a group head of the RSS, which is like the Nazis, like the Nazi youth force, you know, or an extreme brand of hardcore right-wing fascists. Okay. Now, the accepting in the case of Goa and in the case of Goa, it was not the Jews they were targeting. They were targeting the minority Muslim community. You see, historically, the BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party and the RSS may have never made any secret about the fact that India is for Hindus. India for them is Hindustan, the land of the Hindus. And Parrikar is a member of this party, was in charge of the RSS in Goa. And his agenda has always been the polarization of Goa communally. Because the Hindus are in the majority, he believed that if you could polarize Goa on communal lines and you could get all the Hindu vote, he would come to power. But he also understood that the hard ground reality in Goa is that he needed some allies, you know, to come to power in Goa, because unlike in other states in the country, when Parrikar entered politics, Catholics were still 34-36% of the population, which meant that without the votes of a certain percentage of the Catholics, he could not come to power. So, what Parrikar very cleverly did, at least in the beginning, went very soft on the Catholics, projected himself as a secularist as far as the Catholics were concerned.
From independence till I became chief minister, there were only 6 bridges constructed in Goa. 2 of them constructed by military regime when they were blown off when Goa was liberated, and only 4 major bridges constructed, major bridges I am talking. I constructed in 4 years 14 bridges. The multiplex at Inox, which is there, it has been constructed in 6 months, including demolishing of old structure which was lying there. There were 46 government departments functioning from that dilapidated old structure, which had to be relocated, building removed, and a new multiplex constructed there. So, even that Goa Medical College original building has been restructured and with the old style in less than that period, 3 months period. Kala Academy was done in 6 months. Roads were which no one had bothered to touch for last 25-30 years, were done up and broadened, 4-laned in less than 6 months. So maybe this execution style is like a dictatorial style. It's not. It saves a lot of money for people because you complete projects within time frame, you do it within the budget accepted for it. Sometimes you have to push hard, and I made people work sometime up to 1 o'clock, but I also worked up to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And I'll tell you one thing, many of the people who worked with me, 95% of them work voluntarily. Government officers working up to 2 o'clock. Have you seen it in India? But they did it during my tenure. And that was definitely not out of compulsion. That was out of motivation. You have to motivate. Some people call it dictatorial, and that's why they tend to call me Salazar sometimes.
Nos episódios anteriores, encontramos uma certa nostalgia por um passado português. Mas neste episódio, quisemos dar-vos a conhecer uma personalidade que foi responsável por um determinado desenvolvimento urbanístico. Avenidas largas, infraestruturas próprias de um festival de cinema. Espero que tenham gostado desta nova faceta de Goa. Portanto, junte-se a nós de hoje a 15 dias no próximo Contacto Goa.